Hey, my name is Nick Wood. You might know me as Veebs from the Fwoosh, and I am here to tell you that your childhood was trash if you didn't play Megaman. I'm a big He-Man and a big Ninja Turtles guy, and I know a lot of people are as well. And I've been fortunate for the better part of more than a decade now, as far as He-Man goes, and now Turtles, to really be living in an age of rad toys for both of those properties. So I feel like I've been a little bit spoiled,
Sure.
but Mega Man is the one that makes me cry because I've had my heart broken so many times. And, I'm not a huge gamer at all. It's like most of the gamings that I play start and stop at like the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and some of like the arcade games of
Yeah.
that time. But Mega Man was the one that just I don't know, it stuck with me. It was like the first game that I sat down and Mega Man 2, I should say, was the first one that I sat down diligently to play all the way through, and it was hard. I mean, I was just a little kid when that was out, and it was a difficult game. But I fell in love with Mega Man. The Robot Masters have always been my favorite, but it all kind of comes back to toys, and I've never had a really good Mega Man action figure line. I've got lots of Mega Man figures, but really
Yeah.
only him. So to say, I try to play it cool at Comic Con in the last several months with Jada showing off their new stuff. It's becoming increasingly difficult because I just can't mask the excitement for it. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really hoping they're going to be able to make a go of it and get into a line that, like I said, spoils us as much as some of these other properties have been getting over the past few years.
I think they will. I mean, they shut off what, 3 waves already, right off the bat?
Yeah, three waves, and that first one is going to be shipping soon. And it's funny because okay, well, they announced these, but then seeing them all together at Comic Con last month, that was really a moment of wow, this is only 3 waves, and things are looking better than they ever have in terms of character depth and things like that. So I'm like I said, I'm trying to play it cool, but I'm awfully
Yeah.
excited about it.
Don't show your hand too early. You gotta
Yeah,
just
yeah.
play a poker face. Yeah, I'm
Come on, be
excited. I
cool,
was
guys.
talking to yeah, it'd be cool. I was talking to Nick beforehand. I was like, I didn't play much Mega Man growing up. I played Mega Man 3 and
Mhm.
X, and like you said, those were unbearably hard. I don't think I got too far, and definitely a lot of throwing of the controllers. But one thing I
Only
remember
so
the
far, though,
most is
Wire.
the yeah, because is the '90s cartoon
Yeah.
and like you said, the very few action figures that came out from that. I think we got Mega Man, we got Proto Man, and then like Cut Man,
Yeah,
and then I think one or two others.
I have most of those, and that was cool. It's just they're based off the cartoon, like you would have expected them to be based off of. So they looked a little bit different, and it's like I was always in love with like how they looked in the instruction booklets, and when
Yes.
like Nintendo Power did this special one time. I think it was right after Mega Man 4 came out, and they did this whole spread of how big Mega Man was in Japan, and they showed off manga, comic books, the Famicom game cartridges that looked actually like Mega Man and not this weird artwork that was all over like the
Yeah.
American ones. And it was like, this is what I want, and I have been chasing that for I don't even want to admit how many years now it's been for that. So yeah.
I don't think a better company could have grabbed that license either. I mean, Jada was pretty much doing like cars and models and stuff for the longest time, and then they come out with this damn Street Fighter line
Yeah.
that's just out of nowhere, completely amazing.
Yeah.
And then right behind it, on its tails, is Mega Man. And I only have one of the Street Fighter figures so far,
Hmm.
and it's amazing.
Well,
And that made me jump on the Mega Man figures. Once they put those up for pre-order, I was waiting for that, and then the second they popped up, I'm like, "Yep, that's going to my cart."
I'll tell you to their credit, because they kind of quietly snuck on the scene not even a couple of years ago with the Universal Monsters line, and it was one of those things that it was like they've never done plastic action figures before. They've been all about the die cast stuff, but getting those things in hand, it's like, man, somebody knows what they're doing there. And so Robo and I had an opportunity to start to build a relationship with June Lim from Jada. And man, just talking to him for 2 minutes, and you're just kind of struck right away with, this guy gets it. Like, he gets the action figure part of it, but he also gets the love of the property part of it, and he holds them in high reverence even if something isn't like his favorite thing in the world, because he
Yeah.
knows that it means a lot to other people too. So uh,
Yeah.
you're right. Playing with those Street Fighter figures, which took a step up from even the Universal Monster stuff, and I admittedly got to play around with not final production, but close to final production Mega Man Series One figures at Comic
Ooh.
Con, and they're just. I get everybody has their properties that they like, and not every property is for everybody. But I think if you're an action figure fan, they're just these fun, perfect little figures that move in every way that you want them to, and they're being executed so well. It's hard not to like them just on a form for
Sure.
level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Like I said, I wasn't a huge Mega Man fan, but you see the figures that they're putting out, and it's like that's my mind's eye of Mega Man,
Yeah,
and that's what I've wanted as a kid.
yeah.
And the fact that you see, like like you guys had him. I think you had him on the Fwoosh cast, or you did
Hmm.
an interview with him, and he showed off a lot of this stuff, and you watch what he's doing with it, and it's fluid motions. They're getting in all these poses, any pose you'd want him to get into, and it's like, okay, that's an action figure.
Yeah.
It's like there's other properties out there that I've been dying for that we're getting, and they're, from what I've seen in like early copies or whatever, or early reviews, they don't move the way you'd expect them to.
Yeah.
And that's great if because I'll honestly, I'll probably end up putting them on my shelf, and they'll be standing there in a static pose, and I'll be happy with that for the rest of my life, because that's all I care about. But to see that that how effortless it is watching those Jada figures just pose out,
Yeah.
and
and
it's so satisfying.
and it comes down to design, obviously, and then engineering and construction and engineering. But part of that isn't just how well does this joint work or whatever. It's talking with June, he makes changes or goes back and forth about materials to use. It's like, we need to use a lower durometer plastic here so we can get full movement, with the head tilting back or something like that. And that's just having a very savvy, approach to design and engineering when it comes to that. So, the Street Fighter figures and the Mega Man figures, I think originally they were supposed to come out a little bit earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
they were delayed just a little bit because he wanted to get them just right. And honestly, it's worth it, in the end.
Yeah.
So to have
Yeah.
someone who is kind of being the custodian of this property that means a lot to me, making action figures, which I absolutely love. That's a really cool feeling to have. It's like Trevor at NECA with the Ninja Turtles. It's like, there's nobody on the
Yeah.
planet that you want managing a Ninja Turtle line more than Trevor Zamet. And June is just kind of operating in the same way. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could tell when the creative minds behind it understand it
Yeah.
and have a passion for it,
Yeah.
because the art and the mastery just elevates out of it. It's that, like you said, the little extra tweaks. And I'm one of those people where I can wait if you're going to
Mhm.
give me a better product, because you care more about it than Joe Bean Counter.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
getting it out
it,
to the people and like, well, we need to get them out sooner. We really don't. Like, it's
yeah,
sure maybe we're not going to get it in Q2. We'll get it in Q3, but it's not like the sales are going to drop. In fact, you might even get the spike because you show off a better product.
Yeah. And I think Mega Man is going to be a beneficiary of, I don't want to say word of mouth, but experience. Um, I think if, there are people like me that have been Mega Man fans for a long time, and I mentioned we've had our heart broken hearts broken a lot over
Yeah.
starts and stops and whatnot. I think this is going to build as it goes on. Not only with like the Mega Man fans that are like, all right, well, I need to see at least this, and this before I jump onto it. Okay, well, I think we're starting to see that already. But even like the action figure fans, it's like once people start getting these in their hands, it's going to be I think it's going to have a broader appeal, like a lot of the Street Fighter does too. You know, I think those figures appeal to people just on the basis of their rad figures, and I think these are going to be, you know, the same way but in a different way. You know, so
Yeah,
it's exciting.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's one of those things where like I never thought I needed a Street Fighter figure. And then I see the amazing sculpt, the articulation, and then I think it was Robo's review of it, and he just took the gi off of Ryu and just like
Yeah,
scrunched it up, and he's like, it's seeing how pliable it is, and that goes back to, like you said, what June was doing, making it right, the right
yeah,
materials, the right design, and I saw that and I was like, I'm in.
yeah.
And what they're giving you for $20 too
Yeah.
is fantastic. You know, it's
twenty
brilliant.
dollar $20 collector grade action figures are very quickly becoming extinct. So the fact that these are at least starting there is awesome because people that's good for the line too, right? Because you know I think people will be willing to take a chance on a twenty
Yeah,
dollar figure as opposed to like a 35 or a $37 figure instead. So I think that's got it working for it and for them, and they're not $20 because they're like budget
Cheaper.
hacked, right? You
Yeah.
know,
yeah,
It's not reaction figures.
right? Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And you know, and I don't mind paying a higher price if the quality in the product's good, you know.
yeah,
And I've come to terms with that as a collector, because I used to always be like that, where it's like, no, $20, that's like the baseline for a figure. And even with like the NECA like gargoyles, like, you know, $36 or whatever, even that for a little bit for me was a stretch. But then I realized what I was getting with it, and I was like, oh no, okay, that's perfectly acceptable. You know, and even now with like $55, $60 figures, it's like, if the quality's there and you're giving me the product that I want, I'm an adult. You know, I can I can manage.
it's yeah, it's getting, you know, I mean, for a luxury industry, right?
Mhm.
You know, I think a lot of these companies are, you know, working against smaller margins because of smaller runs, because
Mhm.
really there is a very there's a pretty pointed population of people who are into these things but have the, you know, means to, you know, I mean it's frivolous. They're frivolous purchases, right?
Yep.
So that's been beneficial but also tough, you know, when it comes to some of those pricing things, because sometimes it's a really low run, and if you know anything about manufacturing, the fewer you do, the more per unit they cost. But you know,
Yep.
also it's because you know the collector dollars are out there, so everybody wants to grab it and grab as many of them as they can, usually, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I'm looking like so. I completely missed these even being announced and dropped. But if you've watched this show at all, to anybody watching, I'm not one of the guy. I'm not Mike when it comes to action figures. I'm not up on like most of what I know action figure wise comes from him.
hmm
Um, but I'm looking at them. That's kind of where I'm looking over here. Uh, I like them a lot.
yeah,
Like I like the 4 inch. Like I don't know. It weirdly feels like more childhoodish
hmm
when they're the smaller figure as opposed to any of the bigger ones, and they look really good. And I like the fact is are those interchangeable heads?
yeah, yeah. Every figure comes with two different portraits, so um,
That's I'm
that,
loving it.
yeah,
I like we're like you guys were just talking. You're like, there's a limit out there. I'm like, I don't know. $20 seems like it's a perfectly reasonable thing for
yeah,
me to go pick up
Yeah.
some Mega Man figures because I dig them,
yeah. They're
especially if they come
small.
out with some of my characters.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they're smaller when but they still, because I'm a primarily 112 or 6-inch scale collector. But these scale correctly with those because the Mega Man characters have always been, smaller.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because of, the things that we just talked about. They don't move any less or any less, impressively than even the Street Fighter figures. It's like they don't necessarily have the same type of joint and articulation setups because that's not really how they're supposed to move, right? But
Right.
these things, just playing with them for 10 minutes, with not even final product, they move in all the ways that you would want and expect like a Mega Man action figure to move. So it's pretty neat.
That's
Good.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
Yeah.
definitely
good to
excited
hear
for them.
that they look like they're going to be good, and somebody who's had hands-on experience says that they're actually pretty good. All right, I think I can shell out some money for these.
And and it's one of those things that when an action figure line comes along of something that you are a big fan of, it's walking that line very closely of, am I going to fall off one side and be like completely fanboy about these because they exist, or am I going to be on the other side and be really hard on it because it's like, this is something that I love and I want it to be perfect. uh
Mhm.
I haven't had to worry about that. It's like,
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm so excited, but I think when I talked with June about them like back late last year, it's like I had a couple of things that I asked about, if they had the ability to do or whatnot, and I don't know if at the time they were able to in terms of movement and whatnot, but they sure were able to once I had them in hand. So it's like, it's strange when you don't have notes to give, even if it's like of you know positive constructive criticism type of thing. But man, if you like the Street Fighter figures, these are going to be for you for sure. So it's cool.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I definitely net Mega Man. I'll take a rush
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that
That'd be cool to see him.
there's definitely some good supporting characters that kind of just fall outside of the robot masters and the main enemies type of thing. So that's good for keeping things fresh because like you said, Rush or Proto Man or some of those other ones, those guys carry
Tron.
almost as much weight and popularity as like Mega Man does, so they can kind of support a
Yeah,
weight
Zero.
themselves. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But it's cool. Like even the first three waves, it's Mega Man. There's I think one other version of Mega Man coming out, right?
That the first one is standard Mega Man. Then in Series 2, there's Hyper Bomb Mega Man, where he's in
Yeah,
green and white, which he
yeah,
comes with the bomb, but that color palette was used in several other games to represent other weapons. So it's like
Characters.
Woodman
Yeah.
is in Series 3, and that's the same color that you get when you take Woodman's weapon for that. So he kind of works there. But then the Mega Man in Series 3 is like the first one, but he's without his helmet. So that's kind of cool.
okay. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
But Mega
um,
Man comes in every color of the rainbow, and they're like viable variants. It's like
yeah,
that's what's always been difficult for me. It's like, this is a property that lends itself to action figures so strongly. I can't believe that it hasn't been done before. It's like Mega Man repaints are literally important canonical versions, and so many
yeah.
of like the other characters share across a parts library that it's like, this makes sense from an action figure standpoint. So
Especially a
Yeah.
lot of the earlier games.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I remember vividly about like the cartoon was him on the Buster Cannon grabbing someone's powers.
Yeah.
I always love that aspect of it, and to kind of tie onto that, one of the things that I would love a line of, I mean, they could do the same thing with is Kirby. I
Yeah.
loved Kirby, all the powers. Like that's an easy, throw, find like a system to throw a hat on him, and different weapons, and you can go endless with that too.
Yeah, my we have a Nintendo Classic here, and my oldest is 11, and she is really into Kirby right now. So he was asking about Kirby because really the Nendoroid Kirby is the one that I have, and that's really the only one that's like this is like perfect, and he's got the swappable
Yeah,
pieces and whatnot, but could definitely be
that's
more expressive with other versions of him and the enemies
yeah.
in that game.
That's the one with the magnets, right, for the
Yeah.
arms and stuff. So
Hmm.
you can put, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That's such an ingenious idea.
Yeah, that's a fun little figure for
Yeah,
sure.
I didn't pick him up, but he was definitely on my want list. But he keeps on falling, in the background, and I keep forgetting about him because of everything else that's coming out and
Yeah.
everything else. Like I've been dying for a Fraggle Rock line almost my entire life, and
Me
we're
too.
getting one.
Me too.
And I think I squealed like a little girl when Boss Fight announced that. Like,
Yeah. It's weird. This year's shaping up selfishly to be a pretty good year for me, but it's funny that you say that because, I know several of the guys from Boss Fight, and I talking with Andrew Franks from Boss Fight. Um, that's another one where it's like you probably don't want anyone else making Fraggle figures except him and them because of the respect, admiration, and like long history of like really loving the property. And Boss
yeah,
Fight's really good at what they do. And when you
yep,
add in something that is obviously with someone's passion, then that brings it out even more. So I think that's going to be an amazing line as well. I got an early sample of the flange doozer.
I
Well,
saw.
it was waiting for me when I got home from Comic Con actually, and it's like the line's going to be just exactly what you want it to be. I can just tell even by that first figure, so it's cool.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
cool.
they look amazing. And when I saw like the scale, I'm like, okay, that's not too bad because obviously the Fraggles are going to be a little bit taller. Um,
Well, and,
and
and, and the cool thing is that they're making the doozers as figures to kind of do them justice as action figures, but then they're also doing pack-in size doozers that scale with the
oh,
Fraggle figures themselves. So
that's cool.
you
I didn't
want to
know
have
that.
it both ways, you can, or if you just like them at that size, then they're going to have them represented there as well. So I think that's really smart. Uh,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize they were doing the pack-ins. I know like the actual like 3-inch figures or whatever size they are, but I didn't
yeah,
know the pack-ins. That's awesome
yeah, they're going to
because
do.
that I try and limit my collection. Right, I don't go full bore. I
Yeah,
get what like my iconic things, and like I'm definitely getting a go. But I might get the whole core cast because it's the
yeah.
Fraggles. But I was never, the dudes were cool, but they always got in the way, and they
That's
fed the Fraggles with
kind of their
their
thing. Yeah.
sugar sticks or whatever. Right, that's what they were. If they come out with a Gorg, I might get a Gorg
That'd be
Junior or something like
cool.
that.
That
Or
would
the
be
trash
cool.
heap.
Yeah. And if it's not fair to any line to say, oh, you should go or fit in with another line that's 20 years old. But I think they're gonna, if you have any of the Palisades Muppet figures, they're gonna go quite well with those. So that to me is really
Nice.
exciting too, because that's one of my the Palisades Muppet line is one of my favorite action figure lines of all time. So
Those are the early 2000 ones, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I I have Fozzie from that line and the entire Electric Mayhem because again,
Wow.
I had to go. I can't collect everything because
Yeah.
then my room will look like yours and my wife would leave me.
Well, the Electric Mayhem's a good subgroup to pick out of there for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. I debated on getting the new series. Well, new. I mean, it's probably like 10 years at this point now. The smaller figures that they come out with that come out in 2 packs.
oh, the Diamond Select
Okay,
ones.
yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yeah. I debated on getting those, but
I have those too. I'm not as big a fan of those, as the Palisades ones, but they're not bad though. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't like to like call people heroes. I don't throw that around a lot, but Jim Henson's definitely one of my heroes. So I'm pretty big on
oh yeah,
everything that he touches. So the fact that we'll be getting some Sesame Street reaction figures and maybe hopefully someday Ultimates from Super 7 as well. That would hit
that'd be
my
pretty cool.
trifecta of like lines that have never been. If we get Mega Man, the Fraggle Rock and Sesame Street all in one year. That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah, right. I
Wow.
mean,
Talk about
that,
80s explosion.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Not
like seriously, a kid in the '80s and the early '90s, like that, those were gold, right?
yeah. Well,
And it grew. It kind of grew with you, right? You could transition from like Sesame Street to Fraggle Rock to the Muppets, and like, it kind of stepped up with
yeah,
they knew what they were doing. They
yeah,
knew what they were doing.
yeah,
something for
yeah.
all ages.
Yes.
Yeah, because the Muppet Show, yeah, that was originally conceived as a variety show that wasn't necessarily aimed at kids. So you're right.
Yeah.
It's like the Sesame Street, then Fraggles, and Muppet Show in terms of how your humor or
Like
awareness
age group.
occurs. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Although I did like the Muppet Show from 5 or 6 years ago. The one that was like The Office. Where it
oh
was like
yeah,
out
yeah,
late
yeah,
with Miss
it was
Piggy.
yeah,
I,
Muppets.
I wish that went longer. That was so good. That was such a
yeah,
good concept.
yeah.
The one where Kermit and Miss Piggy weren't together. He was with the other pig lady. That the
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, they did talking heads like The Office and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I love it when they introduce his new girlfriend and he just looks at the camera and he's like, I like pigs. Like,
It was it
so,
was that was way better than I think it got credit for. But I
yeah.
don't think it came out at the right time.
No.
I think it
Yeah.
was poor timing on that system on that part.
Although
I
Muppet Mayhem was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoyed that a lot, and it was it's really good in like ways that I wasn't expecting it to be. You know what I mean? It's like it's not what if you're going in like thinking that you've got like a formulaic Muppet thing that's about to happen. It's not like that.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun, and the
Yeah.
band has always been like they've never been like outside of the spotlight, but they've needed it to shine a little brighter on them. So I'm glad they picked the band to focus on, and
Yeah.
include Lips too, because he's not always represented as much
He's
as the other ones. So
he's not, he's
well,
not. Even Zoot gets his focus.
yeah, every band member was supposed to, represent, one of the main Muppeteers at the time, and Zoot came along, or Lips came along a little bit later, because of the Muppeteers signed to it. But it's like that to me is like I've always thought, you've arrived as like a Muppet performer when it's like you have a permanent member of the band, because that was the core group. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of don't mess with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, just the concept that they did with that show, I'm like, this is brilliant. Like, absolutely, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it was a little self-aware. It was self-aware enough that it made it relatable in a lot of ways. Is not only like just the show in itself, but like how you kind of have been living or perceiving them for this whole time. So they did a good job with it.
Yeah. I like how they made it canon, though, that Dr. Teeth is like an actual dentist.
Yeah,
When I saw that episode, I'm like, this is brilliant. And it's gold tooth is floss. It's like
yeah,
actually like a canister of floss.
Container of
yeah.
floss.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched it yet, so
No,
Oh,
no,
you got it.
no, no
It's so good.
spoilers.
oh no, that's fine. Look, spoilers. That's it's my own fault, so it's not like I can't escape it. So we're good.
Yeah.
But that's pretty awesome that they make him a real dentist with floss as a goal.
It's pretty cool because like they go into some of their backstories. Right?
Yeah.
There's some flashbacks that kind of give you like stepping stones and like the foundation of who they are. It's not just this token band from the 70s. You kind of find out what makes them tick a little bit, and I thought that was cool because it went a little deeper into the mayhem. Not just this crazy band
Yeah,
from the
and
70s.
they walked the line well without like overdoing it or over like explaining or fleshing things out, because sometimes you can go a little too far down there, and it's like, well, that takes some of the craziness or whatever out of it. But they did a good job of keeping it, I think, right where it needed to be.
Yeah, they kept the charm.
Yeah,
they kept the charm. Exactly.
yeah,
And I'm ready for another season.
yeah, yeah.
I hope we get one.
I have to be careful, or not careful, but I have to be a little choosy about what shows that I watch, because I don't have a ton of time for it. And it's like, I can't like watch two shows at once. It's like, I need to finish one and then go into the next one. But that was one that I made sure that it was like, all right, I'm going to wait. What did I wait on? I waited on watching something so I could watch that first. And yeah, had to prioritize that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely I told my wife, I'm like, yeah, I'm watching this, and she's like, the Muppets, really? I'm like, yes. Like,
Yeah,
you have no idea. It's
yeah,
because I tried, because after that Office style one, they had some other Muppet show. I forget.
Muppets Now.
Muppets Now, yeah, and I couldn't get into that. I think that was more aimed towards kids. It was a
yeah.
little more scatterbrained and stuff like that. So when this came out, I was like, yeah, this is getting bumped up to like top priority, because I'm the same way. I'd rather consume an entire show, and my time to watch TV, between work, doing this, and then my daughter who's 5, I got no time and no energy. you know
Yeah.
so when I try and force my eyes to stay open at night and watch something, it's got to be good,
Yeah.
and I want to like follow through with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's where I kind of fall into, like, I don't have a lot of time for like playing video games either. Like I said, it's like
Yeah,
I'm not a big gamer. It's like I've only ever owned like Nintendo products,
yeah,
and um so often it's like, oh, I might want to go grab that new game or whatever, because it's like I've got a weekend where I can play for a couple hours, and it's like, oh, I think I'll just play through Megaman 3 and 4 again instead.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everybody loves Pharaoh Man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mega Man 4 is where they got a little bit more badass, and not just like they had to be drawn back to like a service that they could provide, because they, you know, weren't necessarily bad to begin with. Yeah, it's like Pharaoh Man and Skull Man was like, we don't give a shit. They're just cool.
The first time I rented that was at like obviously it was a video game. It was like a video rental place, and I rented it. I was like, I think they've given up. Like, and I was like, whenever when it came out, I was like, half of these guys don't make sense as characters. Like, have you guys just given up? Okay, but I'm still gonna rent it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still renting it and still dying 75,000 times over a weekend.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because growing up for a long stretch of time, my mom was the general manager of several grocery stores, and at this one that was near our house, it was a small store, and that's where she kind of worked out of mostly, in like their offices there, and they had introduced video game rentals there. And it was just a couple of small like spinner rack things, but that's actually where I discovered Mega Man 2, and that was the first one that I played.
Nice.
It's like, as a kid, it's like, okay, this is Mega Man 2, so it's like subconsciously I knew that there was a first one, but it didn't like really like hit me until like a couple years later, when I discovered it. But it was one of those. It was like one of the very first ones that she's like, oh yeah, we can rent it. Blah 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 blah. Admittedly, it never went back. That's the one that is still. They stopped doing the rental things like a year and a half later, and like we.
So I wonder why.
Had to bring home a bunch of them at that point. But the Mega Man 2 cartridge that I still have to this day was the one that came from that store. And
That's pretty cool.
Crazy, because my brother, he's like 2.5 years younger than me, and he is terrible. He's always been terrible at video games. Like, he's just, and he'll admit it. He's like, I cannot do this. I'm not good at it. But I remember, Mega Man 2 vividly, not only because I loved it so much, but because it's like when I would play that, he would like, I mean, I was like 6 or 7 years old, so he was only like 4. He like kept a notebook or something of like what like works best and whatnot, because when you're trying to figure out a Mega Man game at the beginning, it's, you know, the order to beat the bosses in, because they're all, each
Yeah.
one is, you know, particularly susceptible to another one's powers. So it was crazy that like we were that into it, and it took me so long to get through that. But it was like it was, he never really played video games, but that was one that we like, the only one that we did together, because he was so into it too, even though he never played. So um it's a wonder that it, you know, that one stuck with me, you know, particularly. So
Very
it's cool.
specifically,
Yeah,
never left.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah. And then
maybe that's the
I
reason.
and then I, you know, I got Mega Man 3 after that. But then after 3, there were these older, their grandparent age people that lived a couple doors down from us, and their grandkids would come over, especially in the summer, but they lived somewhere else in town and they didn't go to the same school as us. But we would, you know, play with them and hang out with them a little bit in the summer. And it was really hot one summer, so it's like, okay, we're inside playing, and we went over there and they had their Nintendo and they had Mega Man 1. And it's like, I knew that this exists, that had to exist, but I had like no basis for it. And it's like, oh my God, this is like life changing. This is like going back to the roots of it and start playing it. And that one is significantly more difficult than any of the rest of like
Oh, jeez.
the regular NES games. And so it was like, I really like these characters, but this kind of sucks because it's really, it actually took me like longer to beat that one than any of the rest of them. But you know, it's just playing them out of order and whatnot was crazy, because now it's like, okay, I'm going to do a run through all 6 of them and play them through in order. It's like, well, it's like, do I play them through in chronological order, or do I play them through in like my order where it was like 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 1, 5, 6, you know? So
Yeah.
Do you play
yeah.
Mega
Yeah.
Man Soccer?
Yeah, I had that too. That one was so frustrating because of the gameplay control. It was like, come on, this should move faster, or you know, because you know the NES Mega Man games, the control is so spot on and it's so sensitive. Like those old Nintendo controllers with like the pressure sensitivity on like the A and B buttons. It's like that game, it was fine tuned to that. And then you're playing like Mega Man Soccer, and it's like your hand gets tired because it's like you can't run fast enough and kick the ball where it's supposed to go. And it was like, I wanted to like that game so much, and it was,
I think I only played it on an emulator
yeah,
back in the day,
yeah.
and so I had like a full on keyboard, but it was still like, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm like, this
I've
should
never
be way
played
better than it is.
that.
Yeah.
All I know is I loved with Mega Man is going through like the booklets, you know, because they
Mhm.
would show every single character in there, give you a little description of them. I used to love looking through that and just seeing the different designs. And
You know, that's funny, because that was a big part of it for me too, because I mean, it all came back to you know, even as a kid, it's like, I love this game, I want these. So it was almost like, you know, having the physical media of like the instruction manuals, where you could like see them, and if I really liked something and I didn't have toys of them, then I would want to draw them, so I'd use the instruction manuals to, you know, draw them and whatnot. And it's funny because I don't know, something about it, because you know, in those days it's like the instruction manual told you a little bit of the story, but it wasn't like fully fleshed out like games are now. So it didn't
mm,
actually hit me until well into my time with Mega Man, because I always thought he was like a person or a kid in like a mech suit. He wasn't a full like robot. And I thought, okay, most of the robot masters, because they didn't really, I didn't pick up on them being called the robot masters even as a kid. It's like, I thought that was the same way. So it wasn't until much later that it was like, oh, well, he's a full on robot, not, you know, an actual kid or a guy in a suit like that. And that's like mistaken headcanon that to this day still kind of sticks with me. It's like, I know you're a robot, but I think you're a real boy.
I'll
So,
be honest.
it's a
I was the
RoboCop
same way.
situation.
yeah.
It was a what, Mike?
It's a RoboCop situation.
Ah,
He was a
got it.
real boy until
Cyborg.
tragic
It's
action.
Cyborg.
Yes.
And unlike
Your
RoboCop,
dad
Megaman doesn't
experimented
go
on
around
you.
shooting guys in the dick.
That we know of.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But
So yeah, it's Mega Man's always been, like I said, it's like Ninja Turtles, Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, Ghostbusters. I mean, these were the big things for me, and lots of others, but they're the ones that I had toys of. Mega Man's always been
Yeah.
up there with, my love of the property and the characters so much, but I've never had a true physical manifestation of those. So that's why all I know is that somehow, some way, like my two favorite robot masters are coming out in the first three series of this line. So it's like I can breathe a little bit now, but
Because even if they stop, they've checked
yeah,
your boxes.
I'm getting Woodman and I'm getting Iceman, and those are always my two favorite ones. So they've done well with character selection from my own selfish standpoint as far as that goes. So
That's awesome. I think as long as I get Mega Man and if I can get a Rush, if I can get
yeah,
those two on my shelf together, that'll make me happy.
When June was talking about what their initial focus is, he's like, we're going to really focus on games 1 through 3, and well, I mean that makes sense, right? I mean, in my head, it's like my realistic hope is that okay, we can get through Mega Man 1 through 3. The next big step would be okay, let's go 4, 5, and 6 too, and like see if this really happens. And then the far flung one, it's like, can we really get everybody from 1 to 11? Probably not. But when you get into Mega Man 3, I mean, that's when Rush was introduced, so it's like he's got to be, and they know that people want Rush and Proto Man and Dr. Wily,
Yeah.
and Dr. Light and Roll and all of them. But I kind of dig that they're giving, because June, I don't know if June was like throwing out a random number when I talked to him in one of our Fwoosh casts late last year. He's like, I really want to try to get 10 Robot Masters done before we get into the secondary characters. I was like, okay, I'm all in for that. So I don't know if that was like, I want to get 10 done, or if it was really I want to get 10 done. But I think that when we start to see, right, to me it seems like the timing is that when we would probably start to see Mega Man 3 Robot Masters roll out in a line like this, then that would be just about the right time where they would bring in another character like Rush or Proto Man, because that's when he debuted as well. So
Yeah.
I could see that working well together.
is Rush going to transform though?
Yeah, it's like you almost need a standard Rush where you could do like the Rush coil attachment for the jumping part, but Rush Jet or Rush Marine, it's like those kind of need to be their own thing, because
I was gonna say those are three figures right there.
flying skateboard, hoverboard, whatever, and the other one he's like actually inside of him driving him as a submarine. It's like I don't think you can transform that.
I don't know, man. I just come up with the ideas. I don't come up with semantics.
Yeah, but getting I can be reasonable. I would be happy, and screaming for more would just make me a selfish brat if they were able to get through those first 3 games with the supporting characters as well. But man, if they could get through the first 6 to do all of the original NES games, that'd be huge. I think that'd be a huge accomplishment for them.
I mean, they're chugging along with Street Fighter. Also, if they've announced for that line, so I don't see.
Well, there's like 75,000 Street Fighter characters now at this point.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, they've been very clear about what they're focusing on with Street Fighter at the beginning. It's to get through that Super Street Fighter 2 or Ultra, that cast. I mean, it's on the back of they're on the back of the packaging. They're going right through that. And with what they've already shown off, it's like when we get to Comic-Con next year, is that going to be everybody from that. So they'd be
Yeah,
moving
probably.
through it pretty quickly to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, 3 waves showing already for Mega Man. Like they're, I don't see why they can and wouldn't just plow through those games. Especially with money talks, right?
Yeah.
Those things are gonna sell like hotcakes, and just keep feeding that dopamine, please.
Yeah. And, June said that Street Fighter is a big priority with them right now. And it's like, it's popular. There's a lot of characters to get through, but money talks and it walks too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably got to be motivated by the fact that Street Fighter is selling really, really well. Because I think those, what is it, 16 characters plus, the evil versions of Ryu and Ken and Akuma too. I mean, that's that core cast that is super duper duper popular. So I've got to think that there's not going to be any issues with getting those out and into a collection. But there are a lot more Street Fighter characters, so you'd think that that's where they would have to venture into next, and it would be interesting to see how either viable those would be or how they would keep the main characters fresh in there. It's like, yeah, they can do colorway repaints and stuff like that, but I think you're going to see those core 4, core 8 characters throughout the course of that line, just because I mean, I want a Birdie and a Armika or whomever else as much as anybody, but that's not Ryu and Ken or Guile, right? So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it's like
Exactly.
keeping a Mega Man in every series at least to start. For that line, it's like it makes sense. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, give us a main character, and give us a one off, not a one off, but a lesser known, kind of like what like Super 7 does, right? You get a wave from Super 7, you're gonna get a turtle, and then you're gonna get you know Ray Fillet, or
Yeah,
someone like that, Mondo Gecko,
yeah,
and that's a good way of keeping the heart of the line, the heart of the line going, where yeah, you're getting your main cast, but you're also getting figures that wouldn't necessarily get made outside of that.
yeah.
You know.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, the Street Fighter line and the Mega Man line, they have 3 figures per wave, which is, I think, compared to a lot of action figure lines, it's kind of low.
Mm-hmm.
But June will flat out tell you, he's like, it's mostly him overseeing the action figures. He does not want to bite off more than he can chew with any particular series, because he doesn't want anything to suffer. And that 3 figures per wave is the sweet spot for him right now. So, if these continue to be successful, hopefully Jada will continue to, expand into the action figure world, and maybe June will get a little bit more help, and maybe we'll see some of the lines, increase to. I'm selfish, so give me 4 or 5 or even 6 figures per wave, but
Yeah,
I don't want to get ahead of myself.
or even more licenses, other video game characters.
Yeah.
I will happily take the cast of Chrono Trigger.
Well,
That's something I've been dying for since I was a kid.
and you know, I think Jada has a good relationship with Capcom. I mean, obviously that's Street Fighter and Mega Man, but there's also a lot of other stuff that Capcom does. So while maybe they don't have the ability to do some of their other properties now, I could see that games from that publisher being an easy next step for them, because when you have a really strong relationship with a licensor, it just makes those other ones
It makes properties
Yeah.
slightly easier.
yeah, yeah. So there are some really popular, Capcom licenses out there. I mean, I know Darkstalkers has been like a start, stop, and never get done before. I love everything in the world about Ghosts and Goblins except actually playing the game, because that's like the best game ever. But all the design and the characters of it, it's like, Oh my gosh, that would be cool as well. So there's lots of things that they wouldn't even have to step outside to another licensor if they wanted to continue to work with Capcom. There's a lot of video game things that they could get done there as well. Yeah.
I just pictured, as you talked about Ghosts and Goblins, I was like, and you're like, that's like the hardest game ever. I'm like, man, I really just like, it really is like horribly hard,
Yeah. And
ridiculous.
then
But
and then if you somehow get all the way through that game and beat it, you have to go all the way back to the beginning and beat it again because the first one was an illusion. It's-
that's even worse. I don't think I knew that, and now
Yeah,
I'm
that's
weirdly
ridiculous.
madder. Uh, but
yeah.
the reason I chuckled was because as you're saying it, I'm picturing three versions of Arthur now. One with his full armor, one with half armor, and one where he's just in his underpants.
Well, yes, and Union Creative, a Japanese company. I'm looking at him right now. They did a version. They did an Arthur a few years ago. Well, they did two because they did one from the Ghosts and Goblins, and they did the gold armor from Super Ghosts and Ghouls or whatever. But they're cool figures, but they're a little fiddly because the armor
The
all
armor comes
snaps on, and you can take it all off, and he's down into his underwear. Yeah. So it's kind
wonderful.
of fun.
I was actually like, that's what I wanted, but I was like, we would get like one in each wave where he's three different outfits. But I was like, the reality is, I would want the removable armor, so I could be like, oh, I hit you, oh,
Yeah.
you lose your
Two
some of
hits,
your armor.
2 hits, and you are dead, no matter what.
That's it. The gold armor, I think, got you like an extra hit.
That wow.
Because I think the Super Ghouls and Ghosts was the first one I actually played, and then I went
Right.
back and played like the Ghosts and Goblins version, and then I was like, this is weirdly harder.
Yeah.
Like I played Super Ghouls and Ghosts like a few years ago, and I was like, I'm still no better at this, even as an adult. So it wasn't just like a kid thing. It's just this game is ridiculously stupidly hard.
Yeah.
My
Like
That's
I said,
okay.
I love the character designs. I love
Oh
the
yeah.
music. I love everything about it except actually playing.
No, you're right. Like
my
that's
only
why I
experience,
kept playing.
my only experience with the game is that old Nickelodeon game show. I forget what it was called, where the contestants on it
Nick
had to
Arcade.
play. Was it Nick Arcade?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where they had to play the video games like to
Mhm.
win and stuff. That was my only experience with that
They
game.
got to play the video games to earn points, and then they had to go play. They had to go play in the video game. Yeah, it was Nick Arcade.
Okay, yeah, I want to go watch that now.
Well, whatever producer, I mean, didn't like that kid that was on that day to give him Ghosts and Goblins, man. Because
Yeah, right.
oof,
I mean, they
oof.
gave him Joe and Mac too. Like it wasn't like they gave him easy games. Sometimes, like
No,
sometimes the game
no.
was ridiculously easy, and sometimes they're like, okay, but you have to get this ridiculous score, and you're like, I don't think those numbers go that high. Like every once in a while, you'd get somebody who actually did it, but I think they failed like more often than not.
Well,
I'm sure somebody will correct me, but
and that was the thing for me. It's like I love Mega Man games and I love Mario games and I love the Zelda games, and those were games that I actually loved them, loved everything about them, and I loved to play them because I was pretty good at them. But then it's like Ghosts and Goblins, Kid Icarus, Metroid, some of these other ones. It's like these games are really freaking cool. I am not good at them at all. So I'll watch somebody play through them on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, what about
I'll
like
be honest,
the
speed runs, man.
Yeah.
Some of those people, I'm like,
Yeah.
but like the Super Street Fighter games and
Yeah.
the old like Turtle Arcade games and stuff like that? Those were unbearably hard.
The
Like
I have do you know the 1-Up arcades that they make that are like the half size arcades? I've got the X-Men game, I've got the Ninja Turtle cabinet, and I've got the Simpsons, and they're essentially all the same game. But it's like, man, now that I don't have to put quarters in these things, it's a lot, it's just a lot of button mashing. But yeah, when you were having to feed those games quarters, it was like
Yeah,
you can go through $20 real fast.
yeah,
That was like $20 back in the day, not like $20 now.
yeah.
Yeah,
$20 now. Yeah,
see, fortunately, there's a pizza place in town, and my dad would come and pick my brother and I up on the weekends, and Saturday nights pretty frequently. My dad had friends who had kids, the two, like two more groups, I think. They all had kids right around the same age as us. And at this pizza place, it was a big place um back then. I mean, not by today's standards with some of the gigantic pizza places, but there was an arcade room, and it had great cabinets. And the best part was is that my dad and his friends, they could sit around and eat pizza and drink beer all night. And that's when he was good with the here's some more, go get the coins, let us sit here and talk more. And it's like, sure. It's like I
Wow.
beat Ninja Turtles, but it's not because I was good at it when I was a kid. It was just because
you're
that's
I
relentless.
pizza
dropped
Then.
and beer night,
$15 in it.
and quarters were flowing a little bit more freely.
It was always that fun time when you're going to play like one of those games, and there's actually other people there that come and play with you, and it's like, holy shit, we're all four turtles right now. Like,
Yeah,
we're doing this, right? We're doing this.
yeah.
You know.
We're gonna beat it. Oh, we all died. All right.
Well, and that's the only thing about the one ups is that I have three daughters, so it's like, okay, there's four of us, but it's like even with them being little, it's like hard to get everybody around the cabinet all at once. And it's like, we're all four, we're playing it, we're doing it.
Yeah. Right. My wife got me the little cabinet for Street Fighter. You know, the
Uh-huh.
little like $60 one. She got me that, and like so, my daughter's 5, and she loves playing that. And even that, I put on like the easiest setting, and I don't know if it's because of how small and compact it is, but even that's hard.
Yeah.
I think I got through like the first like 4, and then I just kept dying. And my wife heard words come out of my mouth that she has not heard in the past 9 years that we've been together. And she's like, "What's going on in there?" I'm like, "Just get out of here. Like, leave me alone. Like, this is not a side of me I ever wanted you to see."
Well, like I said, we don't get a lot of time to play video games, but we have a Switch, obviously, and my wife and I, we've always played Mario Kart together, which is
Nice.
fun, but it's not fun either because we call each other horrible, horrible things when we play those games, and it's like, oh, I love you, but my God, I want to like, ah, you're so
All
mean when
right.
we play this game.
I think that's what makes it okay. It also weirdly makes it more fun. Is that you're like it's worse if only one of you gets the trigger switch.
It's
But
competitive
if you both flip your
sportsmanship.
trigger, you're like, okay, I can see this is from this time until this time. Nothing we say matters. After that
Yeah.
time, we're like, all right, back. I love you, honey.
Yeah,
No, like 10 minutes ago, I said some stuff.
my
Forget about it.
my oldest always wants us all to play together, and we're like, you play with your mom right now.
Yeah. No. I picked up that Turtles collection that came out, not the Shredder's Revenge one, but the other one.
Yeah,
And I really,
Cowabunga.
yeah,
yeah,
the Cowabunga collection. I
yeah.
really enjoyed that because I was like, I haven't tried Turtles 1 because forget that game. But I definitely played through like the arcade, the Turtles 2, the arcade game, and then the actual. I played them. It is a different feel when you're like you're not putting the quarters in. You're like I can do this infinitely, right?
It, it,
Uh,
it's funny that first Turtles game. So my dad got us a Nintendo first when I was a kid, and my mom eventually. I had one at my mom's house too eventually, but my dad got it for us first. So we'd only for like the first year or so, we'd only get to play Nintendo on the weekends because it was at my dad's house.
Oh.
Um, but I remember I want to say it was the Christmas after he got it for us because did he get it? I think he just bought us the Nintendo as a surprise. And then when it came to Christmas time, my brother and I were like, oh, we want to get some Nintendo games, blah, 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 blah. And it's like that first Ninja Turtles game. I hadn't played it yet, so I didn't have any experience with it. It's like, that's the one that I want. That's the one that I want. That's the one that I want. And I had like convinced myself that that is what I was going to get for Christmas that year. And it's like The Simpsons, I think, were spying on me, because when Bart like wants Bone Storm or whatever that game is, and his mom gets him Lee Carvalho's putting challenge. Okay, it's Christmas morning. I know that box. Rip it open. And it's ice hockey, and not the Ninja Turtles game. And at the time, I was like, great, because I didn't want to, seem like, ungrateful or whatever. But I was so, so, so disappointed that I didn't get that Turtles game. But turns out we played ice hockey. That game's a lot of fun. I really, really love that game. So much so that when I eventually got that first Turtles game, it's like, oh no, ice hockey's better than this, because this is way too hard and weird. So yeah.
And it really is like a weird game. Like, we could talk about it like for a long period of time, but you're right. It's just a weird game. Like, it flows in so many different fashions. It's kind of like that old weird Roger Rabbit game where you're like half like an overworld and like half in a thing, and you're like, I don't understand how to do anything in this game.
Yeah.
At least with Turtles, it was more linear, but just as awkward and weird and insanely hard. But ice hockey is a pretty good
ice hockey
consolation prize, if you will.
Yeah, ice hockey's fun. The Turtle game, it was cool that the first one, it's cool that you got to switch it back and forth between the Turtles. But it's like, who are these enemies? Why is this so difficult? And it's like, I as a kid, I could get, everybody knows like the dam part where you're disabling the bombs is like, oh, that's like the hardest level ever. As a kid, I could get through that. But the level after it, I could never get through that at all. So it's like, I don't think I beat that game until I was in college. I was like, I am going to play this game and get serious about it and beat it. And it took me until I was like almost 20 years old before I
like, kudos to you for doing that, because
most of us gave up way before then.
Yeah, no, like, my resolve on that, like, yeah, no, I'm out. Contra, though, beat that one somehow.
That's another one that it's like, it's cool. I'm not good at it, but it's cool.
It's a lot of fun.
It's those old games like Tron. Tron was not easy at all.
Yeah.
None of those mini games were easy.
Yeah. And that's why
terrible game, great movie.
Yeah. People think it's like I'm an ardent, supporter of Super Mario Brothers 2. And that's the one that everybody's like, that's not a real Mario game, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you know what? Super Mario Brothers 3 was probably the pinnacle. Like, that's pretty much a perfect Mario game. But Super Mario Brothers 2 is so weird, and it's so replayable, and it's so different from the other ones that I think now I catch myself playing that one more than any of them. Because again, it was cool. You got to play between 4 different characters. I mean, Toad and Princess were playable characters. That was cool. So I really enjoy playing.
She hovered.
Wow.
Yeah.
Peach could float.
Yeah, Peach could float, and Luigi just kicked his legs really fast and could jump.
He could jump like a mother. He got air.
And then Toad couldn't jump for anything, but he was strong. It's like when you had to like dig in the desert, it was like boop, 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 boop. Toad was the guy to be there. So yeah.
As a kid, I had Mario All Stars, so it was all those games in one, and
plus the last level.
I said, plus lost levels. Mario 3 was great, like you said. That's probably the pinnacle. Super Mario World was good, but I think 3 is way better. But
it's because of the movie advertisement for
it. Even back then, 2, I loved playing 2. Right, with Birdo and stuff, and like. I don't know, like the character designs were different. Like you said, the playability with the cactuses and stuff.
Yeah,
like, it was just fun.
And Nintendo kind of sucks because they've pushed those characters like almost completely out of the mythos. It's like Wart was weird and awesome, and it's like they're three-headed. Like Triclide was a three-headed snake in a Mario
Yeah.
game, and Mouser, the mouse with sunglasses. It's like bring
Throwing the
these
bombs.
guys back to the fore. I've heard a rumor that they're like going to make Wart a new playable character in like a Mario Kart DLC type of thing. And if that's like the first push to like maybe bring these guys back into like the public eye a little bit, that would be awesome because Nintendo
Yeah.
is very controlling about their, well, not controlling, they're very protective about their, stuff. Especially when it comes to like toys and stuff. It's like toy companies can't make anything that's not like current Mario. So it's like, I want a Wart action figure, but I can't have one because he's not new. It's like, put him in Mario Kart so I can get a toy.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
it. Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Just like
Throw them in Smash Brothers. Throw them in Mario Kart, or just make Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah. Like they do with the Mario.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they do with what, Veebs?
Well, I mean, with the Switch games, it's like they're just logical kind of updates of the classic games. It's like do that with the second one, you cowards. Let's see them do it. And it's like, okay, I get that you want to stay like focused on Bowser is the bad guy and whatnot. Just get creative. You can make this work somehow.
It's a fever dream.
Yeah,
whatever.
It was literally a fever.
You gave us Mario Sunshine where you run around with a freaking water pack. Like,
that's one of my wife's favorite Mario games, and I played that game for about 5 minutes, and I was like, this is not for me. I never really got into that one, but she loves it for some reason.
Screw this! I'm going back to Mario Paint.
Yeah, yeah, Mario Paint is awesome.
That was awesome. You got a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah,
not a keyboard, a mouse and trackpad.
Yeah,
and
one of my favorite things to do is like watch those crazy people who like get really into like the music composition and put that stuff on YouTube, because some of the stuff that they do is wild.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty powerful back in the day.
Yeah,
it was.
I didn't realize it.
I ended up finding like the whole pack at like a Goodwill for like $8 or whatever sometime at one point, and I was like, "Yep, take that."
Yeah, I still occasionally get vintage cartridges because my Nintendo and my Super Nintendo and then my 64 GameCube, all of those still work. Every one of them still works. I mean, you can say whatever you want to about Nintendo, but I swear it's like their stuff works. Now the Nintendo, because of like the push down, it's finicky, but it does work. So it's like,
and there's at least a fix for that.
Yeah.
It's like $10,
right? And I stand by it because I can get Megaman game, like the whole Megaman collection. I can buy that on the Switch or whatever else. But when you played those games so much on a regular NES, that's muscle memory, right? And they have not done a good job with reproducing the old Nintendo control pad the way that it was. The everything that they've done, like even the ones that look like it, that are Switch compatible and whatnot, the sensitivity, the weight and everything with it, it's just, it doesn't, they just don't do a good job of it. So it's like, I tell my daughter, yeah, I'm a pretty good Mega Man player, and I start playing anything on that, it's like, oh my god, I'm terrible, because like the jumping is like 1 millisecond behind what it
exactly.
I'm falling in holes that I've never done before. And she's like, I don't know, Dad, are you very good at these games? Like,
that's why all the
Nintendo.
That's why all those competitions are done on the original hardware for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's why they have like speed run, like it's like a record on the actual hardware versus something else.
Yeah,
they have like special, like they separate that out because it is something different.
The NES and even the Super NES control pads were, I still think those were like the pinnacle of control and simplicity, because it's like I don't own a PlayStation or an Xbox, but I know people who do, and it's like you put one of those controllers in my hands and it's like there are more buttons on here than there is on my keyboard. I don't know what to do with this. So,
Don't touch the
Yeah.
Jaguar controller then.
yeah.
Well,
That
you
thing
sit
had-
there with the controller, you get a new game, and you spend like 20 minutes figuring out what. All right, what does this do? What's it? Yeah.
Well, and I can't play like first
It's
person
R3.
games because they make me sick. It's so
Yeah.
I've got to be like a side scroller anyway, and it's like those side scrollings become kind of an afterthought with a lot of modern systems, and like the control pads and whatnot don't work well with it. So
Yeah.
I guess that's why I'm a Nintendo guy.
Well, I mean, there's a certain charm to side scrollers. You
Mhm.
know, it's not only that like nostalgia feel, but like there's something about like a linear puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
something where you can kind of like turn your brain off a little bit and just enjoy it instead of, you
and
know,
and that's why
having to
like
dig deep.
Legend of Zelda or Link to the Past, those are really like about as involved as I get as far as
Mm.
like needing to save and whatnot, because I have like a half an hour here and there for me to play. I don't have 150 hours to devote to a game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I like I'm go down and play this for 20 minutes, turn it off and actually get through it, or play an enjoyable part of it. It's like I didn't just get halfway through a side quest that you have to do in order to, and those types of games are fine. I'm the immersive world is what appeals to a lot of people. It's just I don't know. I like the
Yeah.
let's get through Super Mario Brothers in 25 minutes and then kind of do something else.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy. It's easy to consume too. You
Yeah.
know, it's not a big investment of your time. Like even like right now, like I got a PlayStation and I also got like a Switch and stuff. And if I'm going to throw on a PlayStation, 9 times out of 10, I'm throwing on a sports game because I can play for 10 minutes, put it
Yeah.
down, and walk away. Whereas if I was to play like some other game that's more involved, I can't even think of one. That's how little I play. I'm not
Baldur's
going to
Gate
want to
3
put it down.
just came out today. That's why.
I've never played any of those. Like I bought the new Zelda game for the Switch. All excited about it. I haven't played a Zelda game since like A Link to the Past or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was all excited about it. I bought it. I've had it for like 3 months now. I've literally played it for 2 hours at most. It just because like for me to carve out that time, I can't grab that game and just play for 10-15 minutes. I gotta sit there and invest time into doing something in it. Whereas, okay, I can throw on MLB The Show and play a quick couple innings and then put it down and walk away.
Yeah, I think I think you can be a victim of time, right? Because when you don't have the time to devote to things, then stuff starts to become tedious. It's like I
Mhm.
don't have the new Zelda game, but I had was it Skyward Sword, I think, and it's like okay, start to play this, and it's like all these things. It's like I've been playing this for 45 minutes and I've gotten nowhere essentially.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, getting your money's worth and really the expanse of it. Totally understand it. But for me, it's like, I need to be on like level 3 by now.
yeah, exactly. And
I've been a
especially
big
with like the open world games, if like me playing the new Zelda game, you can't really travel quickly in the beginning. You got to like work your way up to that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, God damn it! Like I got to go all the way around here and do all this, and it's been like a half hour and I haven't done shit but walk. So at that point, it's like, all right, I'm putting this away. I'll try again another day, and then 3 months later, I haven't touched it.
Yeah. I
Great
wish
$60.
I wish I was into that a little bit more, because I think that, offerings that we get these days that are like that are incredible.
They
It's
are.
just, I don't know.
Look,
I'm,
I think it's the growing it's the adulting in life, right? Back when we were kids, we didn't have those expansive games and we wanted them, right? That's why, games like EverQuest really and World of Warcraft really took off, because we like age group kind of hit that like sweet spot of having the time and the capability of doing that, and you know, kind of getting into those worlds. Whereas now it's like I have tons of friends who play those games, right? Like I only know Baldur's Gate 3 came out today because somebody sent me a group text that said, "Hey, happy BG3 day," and I was like, I got to Google that so I could know what you're talking about. But as a parent, as an adult, you have, and people who are doing stuff like this, like you're busy working, doing something, like your time is limited. My and I have a lot of those things. Like I picked up Animal Crossing, and I've been playing. Like I only cracked it open like 4 months ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, somewhere in there. I've lost all track of time. But you know, I play it for like 10 or 15 minutes at night, like before I go to bed, and like that's it. But it's that, you know, you're like, I want to play a video game for like 20, 25 minutes. And the I'll be honest, the Lego video games have kind of hit that sweet spot because you got a level, depending on the length of the level and the property, you're looking at like 35, like 30-ish minutes. Sometimes you crack into an hour, and it's like, but then you're like, save done, I'm done.
Yeah.
I feel accomplished, right?
I got into the Lord of the Rings Lego games however long ago that was, and those were fun, and that's why it's like I have fun playing the video games that I like. I would never ever call myself a gamer, but it's just one of those things that it's like when someone really knows, when someone's good at something or they know a lot about something, they can explain it very simply. That's kind of how I like approach the video games. It's like it's not because I like games where you don't have to think. It's not that. It's just that when a game is straightforward and the concept you can grasp it within a few seconds and go. That's a, to me, that's a tribute to the gaming design because it's accessible, it's functional, and it's something that, you know, it doesn't have to compete for your time. It can just be a part of your time when you have a little bit of time in order to do it. So,
Yeah.
um,
I
yeah,
think that's actually put really well. Not that I have any doubt in it, but I don't think I've ever heard it put that way. Is really for what that is. But you're right. Like as difficult as it could be, right? Like the more difficult it is what we lived with as kids, and that I think that's kind of what made it okay. But even now, like you like circling back to Mega Man, right? Like you're like I can only play the level. I got 15, 20 minutes. I might get through that level, but you know, maybe not.
Or I might die 10, 15 times.
Right. But you've
yeah,
picked it up, and you're right. Like you picked it up and you understood, like, yep, I got the idea of it. Now if I could figure out the level, that's a separate puzzle, right? I don't want a puzzle to figure out the how to play. I want a puzzle in the game.
yeah. Well,
I think is really it.
and that's the thing I loved, despite the fact that, you know, it took a while. I mean, once I kind of got through the difficulty that Mega Man 2 presented to me, which now looking back on it, that's like the easiest Mega Man game. But it's like I cut my teeth on that one. Then the other ones became more accessible and I just enjoyed playing them, even if you had to like work up to it. It wasn't until like several years later where I like, you know, had a larger circle of friends or something, and it's like, oh, what games you like? Oh, Mega Man. It's like, oh, I don't like that game, it's way too hard. And it's like, oh yeah, that game's too hard, that game's too hard. And it's like, I guess I knew that it was difficult, but it never like it never struck me as such just because I enjoyed doing it. And sure, I get frustrated and like turn the game off sometimes because it's like, damn it, this is like the 50th time I've tried to do this and I can't do it. But I don't know. It's like I never really thought of them as being hard and I'm going to quit on it because I liked them so much. So it's like I was getting the same, you know, thing that's like, oh, that I give Ghosts and Goblins. It's like, oh, it's cool, but I don't play it because it's hard. It's like a lot of people kind of felt that way about Mega Man as well, and it's just like that didn't like click with me just because it was like the challenge of it was me, you know, wanting to play all the Robot Masters or get through them and see the endings and whatnot. So it was just a part of it that didn't bother me.
And I think everybody had their property where that was the case, because
Yeah.
that was how video games survived back then. It wasn't because they were super in-depth games. It wasn't because the graphics were freaking amazing. They literally survived because you would take you forever to beat that game. But everybody had that property where they're like, I'm gonna suffer through this. Like the Ghosts of Goblins guys, they're like, Mega Man was too hard, but Ghosts of Goblins, I loved it, even though it was hard. I mean, it is what it is. And then you go to the Mega Man X games where they just became like, I don't know.
I was
They
never into
were,
that. I was never into the X series. I'll be honest with you.
I think they made it. What they did with those games was they made it. I'm gonna say RPG esque because you could go. You could do the game right, but you could go get other things. Like you could get the Hadouken in the first one, right? Like you had to go do a number of certain things in a very specific order and time it correctly, but you could get the Hadouken, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it made the game absolutely ridiculous, but it was hilariously fun, right?
Yeah.
But you could also go get like the power up armors that you like. So it wasn't like you just go to Chill Penguin level and they do one thing. Like you got power up armors by going back into them and doing other things. So it added that extra piece to draw other people in. And I know a lot of people who got really into the X series and loved 1, 2, and 3. And then would they get up to 7 or something like that?
They got a bunch of them. Yeah.
Right. Through like PlayStation 2, they got like 1, 2, and 3 were on X or Super Nintendo. Then it was like 4, 5 on PlayStation, and then like 6, 7 on PlayStation 2 or something like that. I know I could probably look it up, but no, I'm not. I'm too lazy for that. I was really just focused on the X1 and 2 because like then they were like, we're gonna give you guys the Dragon Punch in X2, but we're gonna make it much harder to get. And I was like, well, that's a lot of night wasted just to get it. You didn't have to, but you could.
Yeah.
But it was that extra piece that like I've always been an RPG fan, so that it was like that weird extra piece that like really got me into the series because I loved the other games, but this one it just like weird. It was like turned it up to 11 for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And skipping from, because games series continued even as like consoles matured or went to different ones. That's why it's like with Mega Man, the first 6 are the ones that are on the original Nintendo, but then they came back and did 9 and 10 as like tribute 8-bit games to kind of continue it. So to me, it's like those games feel much more Mega Man-esque than 7, which was cool. I liked that on Super Nintendo because it was the classic series on Super Nintendo. And then they did 8 on PlayStation, and that's the only one from the classic series that I abjectly do not like because it's like it's weird. But it was cool for them to go back and do, because when they announced that they were doing it, I was like, really, they're going to do 8-bit, but it's like, yeah, this is perfect unless you go back and do like what they did with Super Mario All-Stars, which they kind of did on Sega Genesis, I think, with Mega Man, the Wily Wars for like the first 3 games. It's like they took the games and they just pumped them into that 16-bit world. It's like unless you go back and do something like they're doing with Mario Brothers for Mega Man, it makes sense to kind of continue that original style and whatnot, because I think they did.
There's a charm to it.
Yeah, I think they did a really nice job with 10 and with 9 and 10. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things where just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of things like that.
Yeah, it's the charm of that, and it's what it's what you're accustomed to, and it's what you grew up with. So to have that jarring change, it's like this isn't my Mega Man. For them to go back to that, then it feels like home. You feel comfortable. You feel it's that familiarity, and you're like, okay, now I can get back into this.
Wow. And while 11, they did 11 on the Switch, and I think the other next gen consoles or whatever. That's cool. I would really love to see them like go back and kind of go back to their roots, but do like what they've done with like the new Super Mario Brothers games, right? It's like they're very much their heart's very much in like the classic, what you've always, known all the way back to like the Nintendo, but they've added the elements that make them modern very smartly. It's like the gameplay and the accessibility is just as good as it's ever been, but just bringing it kind of into a modern setup and scene. I think that would be a fun thing for Mega
Like
Man.
Mario Odyssey, but like Mega Man Odyssey.
Yeah, something like that. It's like something that retains like a lot of the classic characters that people want to see again, but just, using the game engine in a way that, utilizes it
Yeah.
instead of just does
That,
it on top of it.
I, yeah, I think Mario did a good job with Mario U.
Mm-hmm.
That was a
That's
pretty good one.
yeah.
It still feels like the old games, side scroller, but it's got that.
Oh, the new Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those.
no, I mean, it's fairly old at this point because I think
But
it was
that's the name of
originally
the game.
Yeah, but that's what they're called though. It's like the new Super Mario Brothers Wii is like, or Switch. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it was it feels crisp. It
Mm-hmm.
feels modern, but it has that nostalgic side
Yeah.
scroller feel to it, and
It's a side
that's what they should
scroller
do.
with like 3D.
Yeah, just the way it's rendered,
Yeah.
it's very appealing, and yeah, I would be happy if they took every
I'm not
single
gonna.
Nintendo game from my childhood and
Oh
redid
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I
Give me Mega Man, but do Kid Icarus that way too, or Metroid and kind of that way, and make it so that I can actually like play them and not hate them because they're too hard.
Right?
I. Oh man, now I'm like thinking of that new Super Mario Brothers game, but instead of like Toad and Mario and like you got
Other
like all the
Toad and Luigi, yeah.
all right, instead of them you got Rush, you got Zero, you got
Proto
Mega
Man and
Man.
Mega Man, yeah.
Yeah, you got all the whatever
Screw that.
hero characters.
Give me Paperboy,
Next gen
or
boy.
the original Ghostbusters
Oh
remastered.
man. Oh man, that game.
I hated that game as a kid. I could not figure it out. And then I went to play it like a couple years ago as like an emulator,
Mm-hmm.
and I figured out how to do it. And I'm like that's all I had to do as a kid. It's that easy to play this game. But as a
Yeah.
kid, I couldn't figure it out, and I kept on failing because I never caught a ghost. never did anything right in that game as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when people realized the key to the figuring out how to play the ET game was in the manual the entire time. If you read the instruction manual, you could play ET and beat it in like 20 minutes. But everybody
That's
spent
devious.
right, but everybody spent forever dying in that game.
So
It's
they
like when you take that test in school where the teacher says read all the instructions first and then do the test, and if you read all the instructions, buried in there is only answer question 10 and nothing
Yeah.
else. So you have all the kids answering 20 questions that failed, but then the one kid that just answers question 10, and
Well, and that was the thing about the I mean even we were talking about Mega Man. It says in the manual for Mega Man 2, it's like discover the right order to face these robot masters for success or something like that. It was a very Japanese sentence that was like translated into English, and it's like if you just pay attention to that at the beginning, you find that first one that has he's somewhat sensitive to being taken out with your normal weapon, and then you just find the one that is sensitive to that one and go on. It's trial and error, but once you have it down, I mean, you've unlocked it. So
That's really, I mean, that really is like the secret to Mega Man is
yeah.
in addition to the insanely hard levels.
yeah, the
But I mean,
levels. A lot of the levels are hard. Yeah.
as a kid though, who's reading the manual? You just want to get to the game. You're mashing the buttons to skip all the dialogue and the little cut scenes back then, and just to get to the content.
Yeah. If I would have just done that more, I would have realized that he was a robot from the very beginning.
I don't want to read. I want a game. Damn it.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I used to bring the instruction manuals in my car, and read them
yep.
like while driving. I would bring them as backups when, in case my Game Gear or my Game Boy batteries died. The Game Gear batteries obviously died much faster than the Game Boy ones.
Well,
Uh,
I was a big time mark for like Nintendo Power or like the Nintendo Players Guides and stuff like that.
Those were
Um,
awesome.
just because they do artwork for them, or they show you through a level, or it was like physical media, because like I said, I liked playing the games, but the getting a toy or being able to like look at, oh man, look at these cool drawings of these characters that only exist otherwise in like 8-bit form. It was cool to see. So yeah, I was definitely guilty of taking like those magazines and those books and stuff along with me in the car too,
oh
on
yeah,
trips.
Nintendo Power was a thing that I consistently got. That and Game Pro every year.
Yeah, Game
Uh,
Pro.
like
Yeah.
my mom, it was easy for me because every year, like the school put on like a magazine drive or whatever. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna order them again, right, Mom? Yep, okay.
Do you remember the phone number in the it was a Nintendo Power where you can call and talk to like an expert and they would tell you how to beat the level?
Yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
had like,
it
I
was like
remember they
two
would like
dollars a minute or some ridiculous thing.
show those guys
What?
in like their jackets answering the phones, and they had like the Nintendo Power jackets. I was like, man, these guys get to play video games
Yeah,
all
right.
day.
And then they played that in the Wizard where they had them calling into the line, and it was like showing the guy he's got like these binders. He's like, all right, hold on, let me go get the binder. And I was like, there's no way they're actually like that. And if they are, I'm super jealous.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be when I grow up.
Seeing the Wizard, it was like, that's how you kind of got those first little tips about Super Mario Brothers 3 with like the whistles and stuff like that.
That's what I'm
So
saying. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
yeah.
And
yeah.
then you realize Toby Maguire was one of the friends at the competition of what's his face, the guy with the kid with the power glove.
Yeah. Man,
You're like, oh,
what a freaking disappointment that thing was.
so bad.
What was the helmet thing or whatever that you can like telekinesis play the game like that? All it did was
Yeah,
give people like headaches.
yeah, I never had that, or knew. I don't think I even knew anybody that had that. But it's like the Power Glove you expected. It's like the one game more than any that was going to be awesome with was Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and it did not work that way. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I hold my hand up and make Mario move, but you still have to make him jump.
I, I look there, like you had this like if your TV wasn't square, there was a 0% thing that would work because you had the triple sensor bar that went around like one corner, and if you weren't like in the exact position, like it wouldn't even register the moves, let alone you know registering the button presses. And I'm like, I spent more time being like playing it on my arm than I did actually doing that in any way, shape, or form. And
for
then
for as cool as like the light gun worked, or like Robbie the robot would just be entertaining. He didn't really do a whole lot, but yeah, the Power Glove was a big time stinker.
Yeah.
I bet the only peripheral worse than that was the Sega. Like Sega put out one of the like this octagon thing that you
Mm.
put on the floor as like a sensor.
Oh, I
And
think I
like
remember that.
the only reason I know it existed is entirely because of Game Pro magazine. They advertised the crap out of it, and it was like the new kit, like the new uh like peripheral. That's the word I was looking for. The new peripheral to like end all peripherals, and they showed it with like a fighting game, and it's got a dude who's like kickboxing or something. I forget the exact advertisement, but the idea was that it was a sensor. You could like control like streets. Like the idea was like you could control characters in like Street Fighter and like Streets of Rage and stuff like that. And I'm like, there's no way that works. No way. And it's like that. It's like, I don't know anybody who ever had that. As far as I know, it was a fake thing that existed entirely in GamePro magazine because it never existed.
Yeah, and because we had the power pad, and it's like, that was fun, but then you realize it's like with the like track and field games, you could run a lot faster or do long jumps a lot better if you just got down and used your hand on it. So
I didn't have that. I had the advanced pad or advantage pad or the controller. It was like a thick controller, like a joystick. I had that one. Never the glove or anything like that. And then I had this little thing. I forget what it was, but you would slide the regular Nintendo controller into it, and it was like a joystick.
Oh, really?
Like a flight simulator joystick. Yeah, like where like you would move it like this, and it would press on like the D-pad
on top of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would slide the controller in like horizontally into it, and then close it while the cord stuck out.
Yeah, I remember like having friends or knowing people that they had like the joystick that was like arcade style. It was compatible with Nintendo. It was an NES thing, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. And it's like, no, it's not. I am so much better
at
with
the
control pad.
It is great for like 4 games, and it was great for the games on Nintendo that existed in the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
Every other video game, it was absolutely horrendous on.
Yeah.
No, I had that, and it did not work well for any game that I played. It was terrible. But hey, I had it. All right, Veebs. I think we're at the end of our line at this point. So we appreciate the conversation. Appreciate the insight on your love for Megaman and the childhood memories that kind of entangled you into your adulthood and seeing your dreams of an actual line come to fruition.
It's been hard not to be a little hokey about it, but I'm excited and I'm not afraid to say so. So I just apologize to people up front, like on social media and whatnot. It's like, I'm going to talk about this a lot because I'm really excited.
And the excitement is well deserved.
Your excitement has made me excited about a thing I didn't know existed.
Yes.
Yeah, give him a chance, because like I said, if you like Mega Man, or if you just like toys in general, I think they're going to be really fun toys. So that's cool.
Besides plugging all that stuff, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what you're doing? Not like they don't already know, but I'm sure someone out there could use a refresher.
Yeah, we're still doing the Fwoosh thing. You can find me on all of the main social channels. I just actually got into Blue Sky earlier this week, so I'm Fwoosh Veebs on just about everywhere. Robo and I, of course, do our live stream every other Sunday. So you can catch us there. We always do that at 3 p.m. Eastern, because we are a site and a YouTube channel and all of this, but we also make toys too. So we are going to be rolling out our next action figure line, which is Ninja Scroll, based off of the classic animated movie. So we got to show those off at Comic-Con in the Diamond booth, and got some really good reception as far as that goes. So we're going to get some things finalized.
They look pretty cool. Everything that's been shown so far, those things look fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. We talked about Boss Fight, but Fred from Boss Fight, who's their primary sculptor, he's doing all the sculpting work for us. So it's good. It's in good hands as far as that goes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you could tell. So many good things coming out. My wallet hurts.
We're going to try to compete a little bit in that market.
But you got something that people want and no one else has.
Yeah, hopefully.
So that's an important thing.
Hopefully, yeah. But I appreciate you guys having me on. It was fun to talk about this stuff, because I know Robo's getting sick of me being a Mega Man nerd. So spreading it around.
That's okay.
We'll take it all.
Well, if you want to talk about it more, just come back. We'll do Mega Man. We'll do That's it. We'll do Veebs Mega Man 2.
He's got a ride in the car with me for several hours to PowerCon next week, so he's gonna know about Mega Man. I promise you.
You should throw the soundtrack on all the way down.
Oh, don't think I don't have that, because I do.